Just saw Eustace out there. Do you have any status update for him?
Well, he's out in practice, so it's a step forward. Yeah.
Does he?
Yeah, I guess just, that response I think was exactly what you guys wanted. Just talking to Mika and I said, hey, look, there's still some things that we got to clean up. Does that just speak to the mentality of this group?
Yeah, it's just fact. Like we still gave up a handful of scoring chances that we didn't like, that we didn't feel like they had to earn. So clean up a few things with our puck play, some of the things that, there's a few rush attack situations where they came in clean on us that we didn't like. So we went through some of that stuff this morning. Also lots of good, though, too, at the same time.
With Sam, he's been skating with the team for a while now. Is it kind of at the point where you're waiting for him to give you the go-ahead, or is he still waiting to be clear at this point?
Yeah, well, we just wait for him to make sure that he's feeling right and feeling like he can go. Yeah.
Eric and then Sean.
Maybe your depth was slightly undersold coming into the series, given what we're up against in the depth of the Jets. I'm just wondering how encouraged you are by the scoring they've provided so far and how crucial they could be moving forward.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about depth here, but certainly so far in this series they've done a really nice job. Like they're chipping in with the offense. They've been really pretty good on the defensive side of things. If you want to advance in current playoff format, you have to be a four-line team. You have to get contributions throughout your lineup, not just your forwards, but your D. You got to have guys waiting in the wings if there's injuries. It's just the way it is. When you're playing teams that finish the same place you finish and or ahead of you in the first round, you need everybody, and they're doing a nice job so far in this series of contributing.
John?
Kind of building on that, there was a moment about 4 minutes left in that last game, and you had Kiviranta's line out there. I think everyone in the building knew Scheifele's line was going to go out there. I'm just thinking in that moment, the kind of vote of confidence that you create, how is your team feeling right now, your depth in their ability to kind of match whatever Winnipeg throws at it?
Well, we haven't discussed it here over the last couple of days, but I'm assuming that, like, I've always kind of got the feeling from our group that we're a confident group, and that if we're playing well, that they feel like they can play against anybody. And they take that as a challenge, no different than, say, Lowry's line playing against McKinnon, right? Like, you run into different coaches that want to run different matchups and whatnot, and you got to be able to, with the home and road situation and from series to series, you've got to be deep enough where you can move things around and that you feel like all four lines can play against anybody that they have. It's the way it was for us in the 22 Stanley Cup playoffs, and it's what we're trying to get to every year, and I'm sure there's lots of teams throughout the Western Conference that feel the same way.
Eric?
On Kiviranta specifically, when Drouin was injured and Parisi was the one that got moved up, I guess, what went into the decision to slot Kiviranta, who was healthy scratched a lot of times, into that third-line role? And is he exceeding your expectations in terms of how he's playing with those guys?
No, because he's played basically what we saw to him the last 6 weeks of the season, we really liked what we were seeing. And, he went to work on his game prior to that with Ray Bennett especially, and trying to not just be a good checking forward, but how could he take the next steps to be an everyday player for us. And he went to work with video, he went to work on the ice, he started implementing things in his game. So we felt really good about where his contributions would be at during the games that we put him back in, and he was great in those handful of games that he played. Like, we have a deep roster when you start adding everybody into it, so you make decisions based on special teams, etc. But wanting to leave as many of our lines together as we could. Kivi's capable of playing the right side and has shown that this year. Kind of fits the mold with Colton and Wood. We put them together. I wouldn't say he's exceeded expectations, even though I love what he's doing so far. But I would say we're pretty confident that he would be able to go in there and do that job.
Right in the middle, go ahead.
Murat from The Athletic. Winnipeg isn't moving the puck out of their own zone as well as they did for most of the season. Looks like their time and space has been taken away from them quite a bit. I'm wondering what you guys are doing to make sure that that's happening.
And when it comes to forecheck, it's really, there's details to our forecheck that I'm not going to share with you, but it's all about work and skating, really, at the end of the day. And, you know, being predictable to where we know we want to put the puck in and what that looks like, and depending on puck placement, how we want to forecheck it. But, you know, I said this after game 1, and I kind of reiterated it after game 2. Like, when you take our 12 forwards as a group, like, that's as hard and consistent as I've seen them work all year in the first 2 games. And so I think that's really the key to having success on our forecheck is the work that they put into that forecheck.
Pat and Colleen.
Hey, Coach, after when George was coming off the ice after that game 2, he smiled like he hadn't seen it in a while. I guess, can one game take that much pressure off your shoulders, and can that be the catalyst going forward?
Yeah, I think it can. Yeah, I mean, I think, like, he just, I talked about how proud I was of him after that game, but it's like there's been a lot of belief from our room that he's got that within him, even though he's gone through this recent slump at the end of the year. And, you know, we talked about it as a team. It wasn't just him, it was our whole team. And if you didn't have to back up very far to the point where we were 9-1 coming out of the deadline, and Gorgie was playing every game and saving above expected in all those games. So it slipped away from us there for a little bit, but that's the thing. You got to find a way to turn it back around. He did in that game. Our team did in that game. And, like, we're only 2 games into this series. Like, we have to continue to prove it here. This is a really good team we're playing. So, like you said, to the mentality of our group, like, there's things that we have to fix that popped up again in game 2 that we saw in game 1. But there's also a lot of positive things that we can continue to build on and even get better at.
Rob, you had a follow-up, sorry.
Oh, pardon me. You were talking about just how it's about that compete and drive and speed in terms of getting that forecheck, right? The other night you also talked about beating Winnipeg back to your net if you get beat 1v1. I'm wondering if there are parallels between those 2 things.
Yeah, well, we want to make sure that we talk a lot about push and reload, and we want to make sure that we're reloading as hard as we push. So, like, we've always been a team that's kind of got on our toes and gone after teams. And when we're really good, we're also reloading and racing back to our net as fast as we can, the same kind of level of intensity that we're on the push, right? And when we're not as good, that's like, it's not close to being where it should be, right? So the playoffs, you see, like, if you're missing a check or someone's beating you back to your net, it's turning into a scoring chance against, because of the execution and the intensity of the game right now and the importance of the games. So we have to try and be flawless in that area.
I'll ask you, Colleen.
Coach, you talked about the better your team defends, the more offense you create. Something that you guys have talked about simplifying the game. Is that part of that, to just kind of get the players in the field not overthinking?
Yeah, that's a small part of it, but that is certainly an area. Like like defending is just you do it because it's what the game requires. But when you do it well, then you're turning pucks from, you know, grinding in your own zone to taking off and trying to catch them before they can get in their structure, right? So playing ahead of another team's structure. But there's also more areas to it than that, being simple. Yeah.
Last one on the right.
Just Mike from the Winnipeg Free Press. Jared, there's been lots of talk in Winnipeg about the Monahan to Foley Ehlers line. They've had a pretty quiet first 2 games. I guess from your perspective, what do you think you guys have done well to maybe keep that line in check? And I guess what's your level of concern knowing the talent on that line, and they're going to be looking to obviously up their game?
We know how deep Winnipeg is, right? And we know how we're going to have to play in order to beat them. So I'm not going to comment on their lineup. You want to find that information, you probably got to ask Bones. But like it regardless of who we're playing, like I said, at this time of the year, the teams that made the playoffs are all really good teams, right? And this is a team that finished ahead of us in the standing. We consider ourselves a pretty good team. We know how deep they are. So that's what just goes back to, again, so you got to have a full team commitment in order to win, and then you got to go and play your best hockey at the key times, which is now. So 2 games doesn't cut it. It might take 7, and we have to be committed to doing that.
Thanks, Jared.
Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.